Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Broadcasting Network. This is the TeacherCast Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jeff Bradbury. We are having a great show. My guest today is Ross Cooper from Salisbury School District in Pennsylvania. Today, he's going to be talking to us about his one-to-one initiative and something called Innovate Salisbury. Ross, welcome to the show today. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm great, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Talk to us a little bit about yourself, man. I see you all over the place. You're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're doing presentations. It's nice to see you here on the show. Who is Ross Cooper?
So yeah, I've been in, well, thanks. I'm flattered. I've been in education now for about 8 years. Started off, did half a year in third grade, 6 years in fourth grade, and absolutely loved it. Got really involved in technology, particularly Apple technology, but obviously the brand isn't what matters. It's what works for the students. A lot of technology, a lot of inquiry-based learning, project-based learning, STEM, full support of, anything and everything inquiry-based learning. Then I left the classroom, maybe a little too soon, who knows. And then I did a year as an assistant principal, and now I'm really, what my passion is inquiry-based learning and curriculum and instruction. And I'm doing that now in the Lehigh Valley in Allentown, Pennsylvania. K through 12 curriculum supervisor in a one-to-one MacBook and iPad school district, and I couldn't be happier.
And that's what we're here to talk today about, is these one-to-one initiatives and how they're forming in school districts. Now, you're new to this school district, but this one-to-one initiative started a while ago. Talk to us a little bit about Salisbury. What kind of a school district is it? What's the demographics? How does Salisbury run, and how is it similar or different than any other school district in America?
Okay, so there's 2 elementary schools, a middle school and a high school. You have about 1,600 students in all. And you made a great point regarding, yes, I mean, the work for the one-to-one was absolutely done before I got to the district. I'm just kind of hopping on board. So I definitely don't want to take the credit for implementing the one-to-one. That was the work of mostly my amazing superintendent, Randy Ziegenfuss, who I know you've interacted with, and my assistant superintendent, Lynn Feeney-Hedden. And we also have a great technology director. His name is Chris Smith. So they were the masterminds for the most part. Obviously, everything's a group joint effort, but for the most part, they were the masterminds from the administration level behind the one-to-one initiative. And I think that was about 3 to 4 years ago. And they started, I believe, with the white clamshell MacBooks. 13-inch white clamshell MacBooks that we've all seen in education, and now they've kind of gone by the wayside. And now we're looking at the silver 13-inch MacBooks. They tried out the MacBook Airs as well. And a lot of the students, particularly at the high school in the creation classes, Photoshop, Final Cut Pro, and things like that, found out that the MacBook Airs weren't powerful enough. So they went with the MacBooks. And, imagine that, you don't know what device to go with. You put it in the hands of the students to see which works best, and that's what you go with. It makes sense, but sometimes we don't do that. But when I heard they did that, I'm like, wow, that's practical. That's the thing to do. So that's how they decided on the current MacBooks. It's on a lease model, and it's one-to-one MacBook 2 through 12, one-to-one iPad K&1. In elementary school, the devices stay in the building. At the other levels, they go home. They take them to and from school. And Chris Smith, our technology director right now, is working on some type of model, some type of plan, so the students could actually hold on to their devices over the summer. Devices are loaded up with software through a consortium. I believe all of the MacBooks have the entire Adobe suite on them, which is pretty awesome. All the technology you could possibly want. Looking into getting some more iPads. But of course, at the end of the day, it comes down to, how you use the devices. And, we could talk all day about the technology and the toys we have. What matters most is the pedagogy and the students and how the devices are being used.
And because of all that great Apple software, you guys were recently identified as an Apple Distinguished Program. What does that mean, and what does all that entail?
It's, I believe this was our 3rd time. You have to renew it every couple of years, every 2 years, I believe. So this was our 2nd or 3rd time being recognized, and basically saying we're doing innovative things with technology. Hosting site visits, doing what we can to support Apple. Apple supports us. Randy and I went out to Cupertino a couple months ago to talk about our strategic plan. Just basically getting, any and every support from Apple in regards to what we're doing, in our school district. But basically, more or less Apple pegging us as, this is an innovative district. They're setting the standard. They're taking the lead with innovative use of technology.
That absolutely sounds fantastic. And there's been a lot of other awards. I want to just kind of start off the show by sharing that. You've also been named a Project Red Signature District. What is that?
Honestly, I couldn't give you as much information about that. I believe that's tied. I don't know who that's through, but I believe that's tied to technology as well and innovation. Nice. So that's something I'd have to Google the exact specifics, but I believe it's another technology innovation type thing.
So let's talk a little bit about the journey here. You are currently 1-to-1. Obviously, you're dealing with iPads and MacBooks and MacBook Pros, and you're really trying to put the technology where it belongs, how it belongs, to give the kids the best opportunities to really reach out and be innovative. When you're in a school district where everybody's using technology at various levels, how do you define the word innovative?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think so. In doing a presentation on innovation not too long ago at an Ed camp, I think it's one of the things we talked about, how it differs based on your individual context. So in for example, in our particular school district, if nobody's ever done something like, a makerspace before, or leveraging Ed camp for professional learning for teachers, or Genius Hour, 20% time, that would be innovative within our particular context, and that would be us moving forward, as long as we're doing it for worthwhile reasons, not just so we could say that we're doing it. Whereas in other districts where they might be a little bit further ahead, say as, even something like High Tech High out west, for them it might be kind of like been there, done that. So it wouldn't be necessarily classified as innovative. But I think it's important not to innovate for the sake of being innovative. Like, for instance, just because you've been there, done that, doesn't mean you can't do it again if it's not working. I think a lot of times we're just searching for the newest, latest, and greatest thing just to say we're moving forward when maybe what we're doing is already working.
You're the supervisor of curriculum. Is that the right title?
Yes, supervisor of instructional practice. It's all curriculum. It's just a fancy, yeah.
So keeping with the theme of innovation here, I'm curious, to your point of view, does curriculum drive innovation, or does innovation drive curriculum?
Well, that's interesting. I would say the student, I'm going to flip that on its head a little bit. I'll say the student's needs drive everything. It's not, you come into a district, this is my first year, with ideas of what you want to do, what you think you have to do, what you think the teachers need, or what the students need. And basically it all comes down to what the students need. So that involves getting into classrooms as much as I can. I would like to get into classrooms more, but I try to get into every school on a on a weekly basis. 4 schools, try to get into each one at least on a weekly basis. And I think it's about what the students need. And a lot of that's driven by curriculum, by, whether it's something like close reading, whether it's project-based learning, whether it's inquiry-based learning, under which project-based learning falls under, whether it's just, collaborative activities, whether it's getting the students to think on a higher level, whether it's fluency. I think all those nuts and bolts need to be in place, along with innovation. That doesn't mean you can't innovate at the same time, but you can't put the cart before the horse. I think what you can do, though, is you could innovate. And this is something I've been thinking about actually for a future blog post. You could innovate. You could do something like 20% time, but then you could look at what makes 20% time effective. So you might say something like student creativity. You might say something like the inquiry. You might say something like autonomy, students being able to pursue their passion. So what are those underlying beliefs that really make something like 20% time valuable? And then turnkeying that to the rest of your instruction, like your literacy instruction, like your close reading, like your project-based learning, and transferring that and embedding that in all you do. So I think there's a way to do both hand in hand, but at the end of the day, you have to have that rock solid instruction. I firmly believe in that. You can't put the cart before the horse.
Well, how does all this start? I mean, I'm interested to know where you get these ideas from, or even how do you walk into a culture change? Is it just walking in and explaining to a teacher what the SAMR model is? Is it going in and saying, hey, I need you to do something differently? Is it showing? Is it modeling? Is it getting everybody on Twitter? Where do you start if a district is looking to really take that step forward and do something innovative?
I think one of the things I always say is that the lines between when an initiative exists and doesn't exist, they should be blurred. So if you're just going to drop an initiative on students during a professional development, I'm sorry, on teachers during a professional development day and say, okay, this is our direction, then you're doing it wrong. I think in order to blur those lines, a lot of it starts with really, just getting into classrooms and having those small conversations with teachers, observing students, and basically just seeing what teachers need, seeing what students need, and kind of almost planting those seeds in a way. How about we try this? Have you tried this? Not even just being an instructional coach, just having those conversations and seeing what comes up. For instance, I was in a teacher's classroom the other day, and one of the things that came up was the use of social media and being able to do more with less time, basically streamlining your workflow with things like Feedly, Instapaper, Pocket, things like that. So we had that small conversation. It was like impromptu. And lo and behold, I went back to my office and I scheduled some professional development sessions in that area. So really blurring those lines. Also, one more example, another way to plant those seeds is, through something like maybe even like a book study. So for instance, I know that, sooner or later, we're going to have to approach standards-based grading, and grading practices in our district. That's something that's like, really, the foundation of any really solid district is, those really effective standards-based grading practices. So one of the things I could do is I could wait 3 years and just drop it on teachers like it's a bomb, or I could have those preliminary conversations now, start by having book studies in certain pockets based on the work of maybe Ken O'Connor, Tom Gusky, and things like that. So when it actually becomes an initiative, you already have those teacher leaders in place and the conversation has already started. So I really think blurring those lines really helps.
Let's take a look at that SAMR model. How do you describe it to teachers?
I think to sum it up is you're leveraging technology to do things you couldn't otherwise do without it. I think that's probably the best way to put it. And even before I knew what the SAMR model was, I think I learned about it back in 2010 or 2011. Even before I knew what it was, like that's what I was saying. Like if you're going to use technology, you should use it to do things that you couldn't otherwise do with the technology itself. I think that's the best way to put it. I don't think it's so much about, memorizing the levels like substitute, augment, modify, redefine. Like, I've seen professional development, like sort of like Webb's depth of knowledge, where you're given certain activities and you have to classify them. I think that's okay for conceptual understanding. I don't have a problem with that. But I think ultimately it comes down to just, okay, I'm not using technology. Now I am using technology. Now me and my students could do something different. I also think there's a lot of value too in just looking at the ways we do things, from an authenticity standpoint. So for instance, like starting with, we use a lot of tools in school that are like made for school, like, like KidBlog and Seesaw. Those are two of them and they're great. But if I'm working with my students, I would rather have them use something like WordPress, Blogger, Medium, things like that adults use in the real world, and then promote their work through social media channels like Twitter and Facebook. So a lot of times start with what's authentic and then modify or adapt it to work with your students. So that's something else that I think fits within the realm of the SAMR model.
And is that something that should be written into the curriculum, or is that something that you feel should be fluid because technology changes?
I think it should be fluid because technology changes. I think if you're writing a curriculum, it's hard to really, even like a book or anything in general, it's hard to really base it around certain technologies. Because you're right, they constantly change. And then, I think it's, if you get married to a certain technology and then, something else becomes effective, then that's a problem, especially for teachers who might not be as, well-versed with technology. It's like, I spent all my time learning this. Now you're telling me to do this. It's a great way to create enemies.
Absolutely. And you see that in a lot of districts who aren't quite sure what to do, where to go. What advice would you give a school district that might be trying to figure out how to bring on initiatives, especially in the middle of the year?
Any initiatives or technology initiatives or just in general? Or?
I still think there's a lot of school districts, and, you talked to a lot of them, I talked to a lot of them, where we want to keep pushing forward.
Okay.
But there's only so many hours in a teaching day, and we all know teachers are just so bogged down. Park is coming up, standardized testing is coming up, SATs are coming up, and here we are saying, all right, we're going to go Google, we're going to go Apple, we're going to do something. what advice do you have? I mean, I know you're in on these meetings of innovative and technology efficiency. Talk to those superintendents out there that are listening that are like, I want to go one-to-one. I'm not sure yet.
I think a lot of it, so if you're a superintendent and you want to go one-to-one or you want to get your district more involved in technology, I think a lot of it involves flattening the hierarchy and having because there's always, especially if you're on social media and Twitter, I know, you're connected, I'm connected on Twitter and social media, and really reaching out to people who know more than you do. Especially, I found that being outside of the classroom, you really can't keep up on all the technology and these progressive initiatives and these progressive tendencies when you're not really hands-on with students all the time. It's really difficult. So you really have to set your ego aside, flatten the hierarchy, and just talk to other teachers in your district and talk to teachers from other districts, as equals, and do everything to learn what you can for the benefit of your students. So, even just like, sending out emails like, hey, this is something we're interested in doing. I'd like to put together a committee, reaching out to other people over Twitter. A lot of times I post, anytime I have a question I don't know, I just post it on Facebook. Hey, has anybody heard of this? Could somebody help me out? So if I'm a superintendent, I'm looking to go one-to-one, I'm going right to Facebook. In a couple of years, if I'm a superintendent, that's not my plan, and I want to go one-to-one in my new district, I'm posting to Facebook. Who's done this? Like you've said, there's somebody out there for the majority of things, for 9 out of 10 things, they've done it before. Reach out to people in your district, reach out to people in other districts and see who's done it.
Well, I know there's a lot of districts out there that are looking for those resources, and you guys have certainly created one. I want to bring up here your website, which is TL2020.org. Tell us a little bit about this website. What can we find on it? And what was the genesis behind it all?
So that's basically, it started with TL2014, and now it's TL2020. Basically, thinking long term. Well, I think a lot of times in education, we're managers and we focus on the day to day. And this is a great example of leadership from Randy and Lynn, my superintendent and assistant superintendent, respectively. And out of TL2020 this year, we started Innovate Salisbury, which is basically putting together a cohort of teachers, 15 teachers from around the district, from the elementary level to the high school level. We meet once a month, and we basically just wrap our heads around innovative practices with the idea that these meetings and what we learn will then be turnkeyed as part of our vision for the district to decide where we want to go and where we want to be by 2020. So leadership, thinking long term. A lot of what we've done is discussing what we want school to be like, what our classrooms should look like, and a lot of book studies as well, learning from experts. So let me see. So some of the books that we're reading, Pure Genius by Don Wettrick, Inquiry and Innovation by A.J. Giuliani, Gamification book by Matthew Farber, some of the grading work by Mark Barnes and Star Saxton, some of the makerspace work by Laura Fleming, and it's just been, and those are some examples. I'll say like Stephanie Harvey and Smokey Daniels, inquiry-based learning. So, and most of those instances, actually, Randy and Lynn have their own podcast, and they've interviewed those authors, and they've made those podcasts available to the teachers, and they could receive professional development hours for listening to them. So we've actually brought in a lot of those authors and interviewed them firsthand. But a lot of it's just about, pushing this cohort forward, helping them lead the way, having, them leading the way, and then helping us to define where we want to go next as a district.
I absolutely love the website here with everything, and I'm glad you mentioned the podcast. I've listened to a few episodes. Randy and Lynn do an amazing job at putting everything together here, and that website is tltalkradio.org. Love the logo. And, the other neat thing I just love about this program here is they're very, very open for conversation. I mean, even right here, they've got a little voicemail button. So if you have a question about an episode, you can talk right to the hosts and get some information on anything that they're looking for here. Really, really neat stuff. I certainly highly recommend anybody reaching out to Randy and Lynn here. And, your Twitter feed here is great. Ross, when I'm looking at a website like this, who is the target audience? Is it the superintendent looking to move forward? Is it the teacher that wants to learn how to do one-to-one? Is it a tech director? Who should come and see all of this stuff?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think it's it's anybody. It's really, I think it's promoting best practice and it's promoting transparency. I think that's what it is. Not trying to operate behind the scenes. We make mistakes just like everybody else. Like even within Innovate Salisbury, we've made mistakes.
Right.
But just operating with complete and utter transparency, so people know what's going on in the district. So it's not like at the end of the year, people are like, "Wait a minute, what's going on? What are you guys doing?" So I think keeping those lines of communication open, I think that's absolutely huge for everybody in the district and for our board members. Our community members, just anybody and everybody who's involved in the district in one way or another could benefit from that transparency and the learning experiences that they've had from those hyperlinks and those podcasts. And of course, anybody from any other district could go in there and learn from that as well, like you said.
Well, let me stop you right there when we're talking about community and creativity here. One of your tabs says parents. What kind of relationship do you have with the parents as a district? What kind of a relationship do the parents have with you? I mean, are these parents responsible for breakage of these devices? Are these parents responsible for, attending meetings on how to do things, tech support? What kind of help and support do you provide at home?
So this is one of the things that we actually just talked about. We did a presentation. The three of us did a presentation together in Hershey at PNC, the Pennsylvania Educational Technology Conference, a couple weeks ago. And one of the things we talked about was leveraging social media to communicate with parents. So some of the things that we've tried to do is doing Twitter 101 sessions for parents at the middle school open house this year. Randy and I went into the middle school. It was a late night. We went in, we did an optional Twitter 101 session for the parents at the middle school as part of open house. So we've had those public sessions available to parents. Lynn and Randy have done what do they call it? Like a coffee talk type thing,
Yep.
Like just getting around having coffee with them.
But you got to do it with the accent though. It's coffee talk.
Yeah, I can't do voices. So they've done that. And the other thing that they did, just visiting sessions as well. Just once again, in regards to where we want to go as a district. And these are all things we've planned, created flyers, pumped it up over social media. And to be honest, just like any other district, I would think most districts, sometimes you have trouble getting parents to attend. So you kind of have to reassess your strategy, are you promoting this the right way? Is this what people need? But I could say without hesitation that the creativity in regards to the content of the sessions and the effort is there in regards to trying to bring parents in. And to that, I really applaud Lynn and Randy for doing that. Because we have so many things to do on a daily basis, and they've really gone above and beyond in planning these sessions. Some of them have worked out, some of them not so much, but we'll continue to press forward. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something else.
When it comes to the school district and the community, I want to pull up a few things from a friend of both of ours, Eric Scheniger, and his philosophy of if you're constantly throwing out tons of positiveness, when those little negative things happen, it really does get overshadowed by the positiveness. Do you find the same thing is happening with all this great technology and innovation? Are you finding that the community in large is more forgiving when something does need a little bit of pushback? Or talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general that is the case. I heard someone say, actually it was last week, that everything that's been done with the technology and with the innovation, we're a smaller district. Kind of wedged between some larger districts. So I heard this particular person say that, what has been done with technology and innovation has really helped to put Salisbury on the map. And now people know who we are. And that's a credit to obviously the work that was done before I got here. I'm just riding on their coattails. But I think because of that, and people see the effort and people see the hours that are put in. Yes, like I said, we make mistakes like everybody else. But I think when you have good intentions and you put in the effort, when you do make mistakes, people tend to overlook them, or they could tend to emphasize the positive. Because I do think it's very easy to say, if you do 9 things right and you do one thing wrong, it's very easy to look at the one thing that's wrong. But if you have those relationships, you have that transparency, and you're putting in that diehard effort, I think you have some of that social capital, and I think that's probably what Eric would say, and people are able to overlook those mistakes. So
when it comes to 2020
mhm.
and where you're going for the next couple years, how do you see curriculum? Is it advancing? Is it changing? Is it innovating? I'm not sure what the right word is on here, but where are you trying to mold the curriculum in your current position with K-12 teachers?
Yeah, awesome. So I think the majority of the work that I've done so far has been at the elementary level, some at the middle, not as much as the high school level. But um, as I get into, hopefully I will say over the next, year or two, like I'll definitely have more of a presence in all the schools and all the levels in the district. But to be honest, it's not even just, and I've had these talks with Randy, I've had these talks with Lynn. It's not about the innovation. Yes, the innovation is great, but to me, at the end of the day, it's about, just solid best practice, like I said before. And to me, that inquiry-based learning. I'm a firm believer of, um, getting students to think, putting students at the center of the learning, and getting them to, and I kind of, my last blog post, I think it was titled Inquiry is King. To me, it's all about inquiry. That's why we do everything, to get these students to think on a higher level. I mean, that's basically what it's about. To me, that's why, like I said, we do 20% time. That's why we do those ed camps. That's why we do those maker spaces. We want our students, to be problem solvers. We want them to be able, the whole word like growth mindset is so overused in education. It's ridiculous. But we want to get them to think on a higher level and be problem solvers and be able to persevere. That word grit, once again, another word I'm kind of sick of is grit, but it's true. I mean, respect the iterative process. Failure. I don't want to say like we celebrate failure. It's, it's part of the, iteration is the new failure. I think that's what, Tony Wagner, even I've heard like George Kuros say that, or something to that extent. But, just getting them to be able to persevere, be resilient and be problem solvers, and just really that focus on inquiry-based learning, I think is absolutely huge. If you're not trying to get your students to understand concepts on a higher level, like what are you doing?
Does when we're talking innovation and stuff, does that come from curricular change, curricular advancements? Does that come from better professional development, more professional development, the right kind of professional development? And what does that look like?
I think it comes from modeling. I think it comes from modeling as well, modeling a culture of learning. But I think it comes from shifts in professional development from the what to the sustainable how. So, I think a lot of times in professional development, when you focus on things that are kind of like, okay, we're going to do a session on differentiated instruction. Great. Like how much long-term benefit, if you're spending an entire professional development day on differentiated instruction, like, are you really granted that is the how, but are you really going to get like long-term benefits from it? So I'm interested in, those really, those different categories and those different approaches that are going to produce long-term sustainable results, such as, the writer's workshop, the reader's workshop, project-based learning, just even something like web's depth of knowledge, just creating this culture where teachers know and expect and, just believe that the students should be learning, on a higher level and getting away from that rote memorization. So a lot of the emphasis on the how as opposed to the what, and just, raising the expectations.
I love the idea of the expectation raising, and it kind of brings up a show that we did not too long ago about student portfolios. And really, as a district, we are looking K-12, but we're really looking K-16. As students get into that sophomore, junior, senior year, what are you doing to prepare them for those next levels? Are you having them make student portfolios? Are you teaching them about resumes and websites? Are you focusing on college and career readiness? What is a school district like you doing to help prepare kids for those 21st century colleges?
Yeah. So some of the talks that we've had now involve a guaranteed and viable, some type of digital citizenship curriculum. So I've been in talks with, various connections that I have, even like Common Sense Media is the name that always comes up. Something that, it's guaranteed and viable and won't depend on what teacher you have. So, you're in our district, you're going to get this type of training. And even that's very difficult because, what's out there on the internet is always changing. So what's relevant with DigCit now might not be good like 5 years from now. But I think there has to be something formal in place rather than just leaving it up to the teacher. In regards to student portfolios, I mean, I'm a huge advocate of students publishing their work, whether it's blogs, whether it's ebooks, portfolios. And, and there's no reason, especially in a one-to-one district, that everything that a student makes should be living on the device, should be living on the MacBook. So we've had talks about that as well. And then once again, like, what kind of platform do you go with, and how do you make sure that it's not just, okay, you did your project, now just copy and paste it there and you're done. How are you leveraging those portfolios to promote digital citizenship and even higher order thinking as the students reflect upon the work that they've done? And of course, we're looking at, there's WordPress, there's Google Sites, there's EduBlogs, there's Blogger, there's Weebly. I mean, but I think, the why needs to come before the what in the technology. Like why are we doing this? Not just for students to just take 100 projects. Okay, now it's all in one place. That's great. But like, other than that, like, why are you doing it? How is it deepening student understanding? How is it getting them to become a better citizen? How is it, further preparing them for college?
We're talking today to Ross Cooper, the Supervisor of Instructional Practice K-12 in Salisbury Township School District. I want to bring up an amazing website that I recently stumbled across when I was looking up information on project-based learning. Talk to us a little bit about rosscoops31.com.
Yeah, so this is my personal blog. It started about 5 years ago, I think. It was actually originally, it was on Blogger. I think it was called like rossbossteacher.blogspot.com. And I started that like 5 years ago.
And you changed that name?
2 years ago, I migrated over to wordpress.com, rosscoops31.com. And then I think it was like October, November, after being inspired by some of my colleagues, namely Erin Klein. I had a long conversation with her. She's like, what are you doing? You need to be on self-hosted WordPress. And I think I even talked about it with you at that point in time as well. Mm-hmm. And so I did it all myself. It was not easy, but now I'm on self-hosted WordPress, and just as well as I do, and definitely better than I do, that, that is the way to go. I'm still learning. I'm proud of the fact that I did it all myself. But it really focuses, I've really narrowed the focus of it. And a lot of what I write, I try to blog 1 to 2 times a week, mostly about curriculum related topics, and even narrowing it further. Project-based learning, inquiry-based learning, assessment and grading, the professional development, effective professional development, those core topics about which I'm passionate. And I think for the time being, I'm going to focus a lot on inquiry-based learning, because that, is something that I just strongly believe in. So, and I think, I really enjoy blogging. Mm-hmm. Helps me to reflect. It's great to know I'm making a difference, not just in my district, but in other districts. And it's led to a lot of really good connections as well.
Talk to us a little bit about those connections. What have you picked up? I mean, you had mentioned the word earlier, connected educator. What do those 2 words mean to you?
Well, so I think it means that, you're not doing your job on your own. So it means that you have a community to support you. And I think there's different, one of my good friends, Tony Sinanis, he talks about how there's different like levels and circles. And so you have the people you follow on Twitter, you have your colleagues, then you have your friends, and then you have your close friends. So there's all different levels and complexities to it. But to me, it kind of started in 2011 when I joined the Apple Distinguished Educator Program. And I kind of, to be honest, like in my school district as a teacher, I kind of was that, square peg in the round hole. I wanted to implement iPads. I wanted to do a lot of innovative things, and there was some good stuff going on in my district, but I realized that, I wanted something a little bit more. I wanted to get in touch with people who were really not just doing the most innovative things in my district, in my area, but around the country and around the world, and really tapping into, your personal learning network. Your PLN allows you to do that. So, just like you, on a regular basis, I'm consistently, collaborating with people who, are some of the, the most innovative educators from around the country. And it can't really, because of that, you can't help but really up your game and, become a better educator for it, not just for the support that they offer you, but for the resources and ideas. And it's really, it's really, truly invaluable when you, I think it's the idea of really surrounding yourself with people who are better than you are, and then, supporting each other. That's really, to me, what it comes down to.
So when you're an Apple Distinguished Educator working in an Apple Distinguished school, is it true that every time Apple runs a keynote, that's like a half day for you guys?
when Apple runs it. Oh, when they do a. Oh, you mean like when they reveal new products?
I mean, do you guys all gather in the auditorium and just watch the wonder that is the iPad unveiling?
That would be awesome. I could honestly say I did that with my fourth grade students, and whenever there was the last 3 or 4 years I taught, whenever there was, it was only a couple times a year, I'd be like, forget it. Let's see what's coming out from Apple. And if there was software that came out, I'd get it in their hands as quickly as possible. But what we gravitated towards was actually analyzing their slides. So we would look at the slides of Steve Jobs. We would look at the slides of Tim Cook, and we'd analyze their slide design and kind of create like student created rubrics from there and try to incorporate that into our own work. So, making it a little bit more worthwhile in case those parents want to call and say, you're wasting my child's time in school or something like that.
It's just, I'm not wasting your child's time. I'm shopping.
Yeah, exactly.
Ross, I want to say thank you for coming on. We've been friends for a long time now. We've done camps together, and the work that you're doing in the classroom is really, really inspirational. I certainly want to encourage anybody to reach out and check out that website again. That is Ross Coops 31. That's ROSSCOOPS 31.com. Is that have any reference to Baskin Robbins? I just need to know.
Oh, no, it's funny. People ask about that because 31's everywhere. I played some street hockey in high school, and that was my number.
Nice.
I've had I think Ross Coops 31 was my AOL sign on when I was in like middle school, and it's just stuck. And I'm fortunate that everything that I have is Ross Coops 31. It's kind of weird, but at least it's consistent, like I guess branding, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it. So it helps.
So right now somebody out there in their car is trying to email Ross Coops 31 at AOL.
Probably.
Ross, before I let you go, I have a little challenge for you. We usually do this on our educational podcasting show, but I wanted to throw something at you called the Jersey 5. It's 5 questions to stump my favorite educators. Would you be interested in taking our challenge today?
Sure. At this point, I have no choice, so let's go. Let's try it.
What is your favorite Twitter address to follow or hashtag to follow, and why?
Oh, that's awesome. Wow.
And you can say you can say Sean Junkins. That's okay.
Oh, Sean Junkins. I'll throw out for handles. Somebody who's really inspired me as of late, and I mentioned him earlier, is Tony Sinanis. I'll throw him out there as someone that I've become really good friends with in the last half year. And it's actually his handle is at Tony Sinanis, and somebody who's really inspired me in the past year. And if I'm going to go with my favorite, and by the way, Tony's a elementary school principal. He was actually the New York elementary school principal of the year, like last year in 2014. I believe this year was actually my colleague Lisa Mead. But yeah, he's a principal of Cantiague Elementary School in Long Island. As far as hashtags. I've been doing Ed Tech Chat, for a while. I don't do it as much as I used to, but Ed Tech Chat, the folks over there, Tom Murray is a good friend of mine. Sharon Plant is awesome. Katrina Stevens, Susan Bearden, Alex Podchaski were the original crew. And I've been doing that chat, I think, longer than anything, along with Sat Chat, of course, the guys from Jersey, Brad, Billy, and Scott.
Nice. Question number 2, what is your favorite educational tool to use, recommend, present on?
Oh, Apple Keynote. Keynote. It has to be Keynote. I saw Duarte present back in 2013. Nancy Duarte, if you're not familiar with her work, awesome stuff on slide design. Saw her present. I swear by Apple Keynote. I absolutely swear by Apple Keynote. I'm not at the level of Adam Bello with his slides, but I think I make some pretty darn good slides.
You don't have 435 tweets per second when you do your presentations?
No.
I'm still amazed when I see that pop out.
I love Apple Keynote.
And that's great. I sat in a I'll throw out a name that I know you know. I sat in a John Carippo presentation on Keynote and just amazed. And I'm a big fan of Keynote. I only use Google Slides when I'm trying to archive things, but I swear up and down by Keynote. I think it's one of the best apps that really does need to get a little facelift here or there. Number 3, best advice you've ever been given as an educator?
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, wow. I don't know. That's tough. I mean, I think if anything, one of the things I'm proud of is I think just, anybody, I don't want to, obviously, I've gotten any type of work ethic, whether you think it's good or bad, I've gotten it from my dad, always pushing me to work hard. So I think, someone like my dad or just anybody who pushes me to work hard, I know that's not very specific, but I think it's about, working hard. And ultimately, I think, treating people the right way. I firmly believe. And I've been in districts where I either, agree or disagree with what people are doing, and that's okay. But when I see people being mistreated, when I see teachers being mistreated by admin, when I see, certain people acting like they're better than anybody else, like, because I'm an administrator, you need to do this. I firmly believe in flattening the hierarchy, working together as equal. So I can't name anybody specifically, but anybody who's told me, to work hard and treat people the right way, like once again, my dad, that's really probably the best advice I've gotten. I know that's like life advice, not specific education advice, but I think it's one and the same.
Nice. Number 4, what do you hope your students remember about you when they graduate at the end of the year?
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, wow. I think once again, that I treated them, and I made mistakes. I actually did a blog post a while back, my biggest regret as a teacher, and how I could have treated my students better in some instances. So I did make mistakes, but that I treated them as equals, and that I didn't talk, even though I was dealing with fourth graders, I think a lot of my fourth graders would say that one of my former parents put it best is that I let my true personality shine through when I was with my students. I didn't try to become somebody else. And maybe that's good or bad, depending on whether you like my personality. But I think, letting my true personality shine through and treating my students as equals and as people, and not talking down to them and not lowering the expectations, but raising the bar and giving them the support they needed to meet it. So, treating them like so, and also really, getting them to really look back at the work that they did and say, wow, I just can't believe I did that. After a year in fourth grade, like a year ago, there's no way I would have thought I would have been able to do those things. And now, look at me now because of what Mr. Cooper taught me. One of the biggest compliments I got from a parent was, when the students reached fifth grade, you could tell who was in your class and who wasn't. And to me, that's something that will always, stick in the back of my mind. Once again, I made a lot of mistakes, but those are some of the things that I'm proud of.
That's pretty cool. Last but not least here, number 5, what is the best teachable moment you've ever had?
Wow, the best teachable moment. Wow. These are deep. These are the hardest 5 questions ever. I'll say this. I did a lot of things in my classroom that I was proud of, but I was always particularly proud of the things I was able to do that was able to affect my district as a whole. So in a district of 7 or 8 elementary schools, I think it's 7. One of the things I brought to the district before, a couple years before I left, was something called the Daily 5, which is basically a structure for balanced literacy. And, I got the book. I kind of promoted it with the right people. I'll know this people. If you get it in the hands of this person, it's going to make a difference because this person is like the squeaky wheel. This person could make a difference. So I got it in the hands of the right people. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. And now I'm 2 years removed from my district, and across all seven elementary schools in that district, I think it's 7, some form of the Daily 5 is being implemented in one way or another. So as a 4th grade teacher, I was able to do something sustainable that is still affecting so many darn teachers and students in that district, a couple years after I've left. And to me, I take a lot of pride in that.
That's pretty cool. I'm going to throw one more at you. Favorite song lyric?
Favorite song lyric. Oh, awesome. Favorite song, Grateful Dead, Terrapin Station. It's my favorite song. And I'm starting to put this at the end of some of my slide decks. I'm doing a cheap plug. I'm doing a webinar next week. And I'm taking some of the slides that I previously did for a keynote. And it says, one of the lines from Therapist Station is, his job is to shed light, not to master. Sung by Jerry Garcia, written along with Robert Hunter, who did a lot of Jerry's lyrics with him. And I think, his job is to shed light, not to master. It's basically saying, me coming in here and working with you, I bring certain experiences to the table. And so I might have these ideas as to what we should do and what we shouldn't do, but your experiences are just as valuable as mine. So though, and it basically, it speaks to inquiry. Like, I'm shedding light. I'm telling you what I know based on my experiences, but I'm not going to master this for you. It's up to you to decide what you want to do. Everything I have said today, feel free to take it with a grain of salt, because I don't want to discredit what you're bringing to the table and your experiences and your values and beliefs. So I'm actually thinking about putting that, at the end of a lot of my slide decks for my keynotes and my presentations, just, to get people to believe in themselves and not necessarily what I'm coming in and dispelling.
That, I think, is a great way to end a podcast right there. Ross, thank you so much for coming on today. One more time, where can we find you and the great work happening at Salisbury Township School District?
So the TL2020.org website that you brought up, and even if you just Google Salisbury, I think the main website is stsd.org, Salisbury Township School District.org, stsd.org. Then you have the TL2020.org website that you brought up. So anything from there, it's all connected. It's all one digital hub. And my work is rosscoops31.com and at rosscoops31 on Twitter, and AOL.com apparently as well. So.
If you are out there running Netscape, he is the guy to talk to. Thank you so much, Ross, for stopping by here. And there's, of course, several great things happening on TeacherCast. I want to, before leaving here, just mention a few things. Our brand new site, Beyond the Hour of Code, is now live, and our buddy Sam Patterson just released his book. It's available on Amazon. If you're a teacher out there looking to bring coding into the classroom, I highly recommend it. BeyondTheHourOfCode.com. It is an amazing book. You can certainly pre-order it right now over at beyondthehourofcode.com/Amazon. If you're looking at bringing in STEM, coding, programming, anything to your school, check it out today. We just released a great Tech Educator podcast, episode 111, all with Sam and all about the great stuff that he's doing in the classroom. Certainly check it out. There's, of course, several great ways that you can participate in TeacherCast each and every day. You can, of course, reach out on Twitter at TeacherCast. Leave us a voicemail over at teachercast.net/voicemail. Email us at feedback@teachercast.net, and we love it when you subscribe to our iTunes and YouTube channel over at teachercast.net/iTunes and teachercast.net/YouTube. And while you're there, please click the subscribe button, download everything that we're doing, and leave us a nice review and 5-star rating. This show is only possible by viewers like you. My name is Jeff Bradbury. On behalf of everybody here on the TeacherCast Educational Broadcasting Network, keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.